Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Storyist. Oftentimes, people forget that a man's soul is more important than their physical appearance and age. Today, I will be telling you a story about a young, beautiful woman who cried her heart out when she was about to marry an elderly man. But she was shocked to find out who the man really was. Stay until the end of the video to see who the man was and what the girl did about it. In the outskirts of a big progressive city lived a young girl named Amy. Amy lived in a huge farm owned by her father, together with her 6 siblings and her loving mother. Her father's job was to plant vegetables in his farm, grow them, and then sell them in the small town market. They didn't have much in life, but Amy could never be happier. She had a family that loves each other so dearly that nothing can tempt her away. They had a next-door neighbor whom she loved to call Mr. Fitz. He was a good man and was very handsome for his age. He was 20 years older than her, but ever since the Fitzes moved next to their home, she had always admired him, not only because of his face, but for his heart. Mr. Fitz used to play with Amy when she was just a schoolgirl. He would take her to the park and buy her ice cream, and he would teach her how to be nice to other people, too. Mr. Fitz never failed to bring fruits to his neighbors, including her family, every morning. Their families got along really well, and Amy thought everything was perfect. That was until she became a teenager and went to high school with her friends who had big dreams. When she turned 16, all her dreams to mend the farm with her father and 6 siblings turned upside down. She now dreamed of leaving her hometown and going to a prestigious university in the city with her friends. When she told her parents about her change of heart, they were heartbroken. But they also loved her enough not to make her stay. Instead, they supported her dreams and worked double time in the farm so they could save money for her university fees. Luckily, Amy was smart enough to be accepted in a scholarship program, so just after graduating high school, she bid her family and her next-door neighbor goodbye. Mr. Fitz and her family went with her to the train station, and just before her train came, Amy whispered a few words to him that made him laugh. "I'm going to marry you someday, Mr. Fitz," Amy said. Mr. Fitz burst out in laughter and patted her head. "By then, I'll be old and useless," he replied. Amy frowned and said, "People are not defined by their age, but by their personality." Mr. Fitz couldn't do anything but smile at her, knowing that her farewell wish would be impossible, especially for a teenage girl. Life in the city was drastically different for Amy. She was all on her own, so she had to do everything for her own. Yet this never stopped her from studying hard and getting good grades. She knew her family couldn't provide enough for her allowance and other school expenses in the city, so she worked 2 shifts to provide for herself. Living in the city cost twice as much as living in the suburbs, so she had no choice but to double the workload she accepted. She couldn't even save enough to buy herself a phone. So every weekend she would borrow her roommate's cell phone so she could call her family back in town. Finally, after 5 years of struggling here and there just to make ends meet, Amy graduated with a good degree in the city's most prestigious school. Her family traveled far so they could attend her graduation ceremony. They were very proud of her, and she was proud of herself too. Shortly after her graduation, she started looking for a job. It wasn't easy, and she didn't realize it was harder to work in the real world than study for college. She searched and searched until she landed a job as an assistant. It didn't pay much, so she lived a lifestyle that was just enough to feed her for the month. But since her family has always been her priority, she would always take a part of her income to send back to her family in the suburbs, even if it meant skipping meals for herself. She worked for her corporate job for another 5 years, and everything seemed to be going fine then. It wasn't as great as she expected city life would be, but she was getting along fine. Every year, she would get a raise in her salary, But with 6 siblings still in school, her family still couldn't afford stopping from working in the farm, even though her father was getting older and older. One morning, Amy received a call from an unknown number at her office. She took it and was surprised to hear her mother's voice. She was crying hard while talking, so Amy couldn't understand any word she said. When her mother calmed down, she explained that Amy's father was rushed to the hospital because of heart failure, and that he would need a heart transplant that would cost them a fortune. Amy was so devastated by this news. She didn't know what to do. During her 5 years living in the city, she wasn't able to save much because she had to provide for her family too. She tried to ask for help from her boss and peers, and even took 2 more work shifts just to save more money. She wasn't eating, and she couldn't sleep as well. She put out donation pages on social media and did everything she could. One morning, she woke up to an email. It said, "Amy, I am a man of big fortune. If I ask you to marry me, I can save your father, and he will never have to work for another day. Love, Robin." Amy felt chills run her spine. She knew she wouldn't accept such an offer. Besides, she didn't know anyone named Robin. But she couldn't stop thinking about her poor father. After a while, she just found herself hitting the reply button. The wedding took place immediately. She was so embarrassed that she didn't tell any of her friends that she was about to get married to a man she never met. When they finally saw each other for the first time at the aisle, Amy was so disappointed. He was about 20 years older than her, and his face had obvious wrinkles. While walking down the aisle, she couldn't help herself as tears streamed on her face. When they met at the altar, Amy broke down and said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this." The man asked her why, and she replied, "Because you're too old for me." But everyone was shocked when the man gently held Amy's hand and said, "Someone once told me that people are not defined by their age or appearance, but by their personality." Amy's eyes widened, realizing who the man was. "I'm Robin Fitz, and I really want to help your father. Besides, I believe I still owe you a wedding, don't I?" he continued. Amy's tears turned into tears of joy. She couldn't imagine that she would meet her childhood hero in the city 10 years after they parted ways. And that's when she realized she never forgot about him, too. Amy went on with the wedding, but this time she was full of smiles all throughout. Mr. Fitz helped his old neighbor in his recuperation, and her father couldn't be happier for their wedding. Turned out Mr. Fitz went into the city shortly after Amy left town. Their paths never crossed since then, but when he came across Amy's donation post, he didn't let his golden opportunity go. When Amy learned about this, she was moved, and the two lived happily in the city. That's all for today. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.